Yeah,
Y'all.
our fourth edition. Could you imagine?
Oh my God.
Man,
I feel like we've been doing this for 2 years.
I know. Because and listen, shout out to everybody who's just been complimenting how our energy and how we work so well together. That's probably why it feels like we've been doing this forever, right?
I know, but I mean, they don't know that we literally been working together for what,
That's
8 years now?
true.
So I think there's a little bit of chemistry there, right?
Definitely. Big facts. Big facts. Well, welcome to That Part Podcast. Listen, man, we're really excited. As you can see, we have a new look. It's not going to stay. It's very special because we are doing a voters edition of That Part Podcast here today. We have some really cool guests. Want to tell them, just what kind of guests we're going to have. And then we'll do the bios later. And then we can kind of get into the intro of what That Part Podcast is and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, like you said, today is all about voting. It's like the secret guide, all you need to know guide to voting. And these guys are some experts on it. So, our guests today are going to let you know the real about voting does your vote really count, what
Yep.
their role is and what they want to do in that space. And so I'm really excited because especially as we talk about voter education and importance of voting, not just in presidential elections but local elections as well, and every election, these guys are the ones that are like an integral part of that whole process. So I think you guys are in for a
Absolutely.
treat.
I'm more excited of like debunking myths. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm really excited about that. But listen, of course, this show is brought to you by High Low News, South Florida's hyperlocal news, and the CEO, my amazing co-host Janae Tade over there. Let them know a little something about High Low News.
Thank you so much. High Low News is so proud to be a partner and sponsor of the That Part podcast. We are South Florida's only news site dedicated to Black and Brown millennials. Everything from politics, entertainment, community news, memes and jokes, and everything in between. We are not your grandma's news, okay? But we are there for everybody. But we are a safe space and a fun space for Black and Brown millennials, and giving my generation local news, so that we can consume it and be active and productive citizens. And the work that we're doing here with Just Vote, period, and That Part podcast is all about that. And PK, can you tell them a little bit about Just Vote, period?
Absolutely. So that's my baby. All right. Just Vote Period is pretty much a lifestyle voting advocacy organization where we just encourage our youth, mainly the Black and brown ones, to be a part of the voting process and try to express to them how important it is. But we do it in a manner where it's a lot more easier for them to chew. And we like to call ourselves like the cool kids that vote. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Kind of sum it all up there. I'm also a radio host on 103.5 The Beat here in Miami. And, we collided together because, we have some amazing brands that are trying to target, pretty much or feed the same audience. And now That Part podcast allows us to do that and to tackle some really amazing topics and issues that are going on in our community and nationwide. So again, this show today is really special because we're going to focus on voting. So I don't
Yes.
know about you, but I'm ready, sis.
Yes. And give yourself national syndicated radio host. You're not just Miami. Let the let the kids know, like, you're around the country. I was in New Orleans before I heard you on the radio. I was like, what is PK? I
Definitely
be
on
in
that.
Orlando hearing you. I'm like, you're everywhere, okay?
Definitely on. Thank you, Janae, on that iHeart radio platform, touching many cities out there, and grateful for that opportunity. So, we want to use this opportunity also to bless our audience and educate our audience as well. You know what I mean? My show producers in there like, pop yo shit. You know what I'm saying? So,
Family's
thank you
always.
so much for the encouragement. All right, but we ready to get started, Janae?
Yes, let's get into it.
All right. So let's present our guests. Are we gonna do
Yes.
it the bio style?
Yes,
Our
let's
first
read their
guest.
bios before we bring them on the screen so the people so that people understand what it is.
Yeah, build that excitement. All right. So our first guest is an elected leader responsible for conducting all federal, state, and county and municipal elections held in Broward County, Florida. He's a supervisor and professional career began in the Army as an officer after graduating from the United States Military Academy at West Point. After serving in South Korea, he was promoted to captain and went on to serve as an embedded advisor with the Iraq Army. While serving in Iraq, he earned the Combat Action Badge and was awarded the Bronze Medal Star. After his military service, the supervisor earned an MBA from Villanova University and spent more than a decade in the private sector. Since he assumed his current role on January 5th, 2021, this supervisor has worked diligently to improve the capacity of elections in his office. He has focused on expanding in person early voting as well as ensuring everyone who chooses to can vote by mail. He has dramatically improved the communications infrastructure of the SOE office and was recognized for innovation within the Democracy Award for Best Practice in 2023 by the National Association of Elections Officials. In 2024, he was recognized by MIA Media Group as Public Official of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, the Broward County Supervisor of Elections, Joe Scott in the building.
Hey. Okay.
All right. So can I just go on to our next one now?
Yeah, let's intro because I want to have both of them on the screen at the same time.
All right, let's do this, man. Let's do this. So this candidate for Miami-Dade Supervisor of Elections was a former U.S. Army reservist at Fort Jackson in South Carolina, graduated from Carroll City High in 92. I know that makes you happy, Janae.
Hey, hey.
Graduated cum laude from Florida Memorial University. He has a bachelor's in political science and public administration. Former chief of staff for the city of North Miami Beach. Got the first Haitian American Democrat voted into Congress in U.S. history. Served as the first chief of staff on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Citizen ambassador for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. Shop steward for the Teamsters at UPS, also endorsed by the Teamsters Union. Managed the first openly gay candidate to be mayor in North Miami in 2004. Former chair of the PAC that won the bond in Miami Gardens to build the beautiful parks in the city. Deputy manager for gambling initiatives, slot machines. Managed the Miami-Dade County for Andrew Gillum, and they won the primary. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the one, the only, Willis Howard.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hey.
Hey, good evening, Janae Papati. Great to have you.
That's what's up, man. Listen, it's a pleasure to have you gentlemen both be on the show today. Our focus today is definitely about voting. It's definitely about the election. We're doing a special edition today. So I couldn't find two better people to have on, Janae and I, than the Broward County Supervisor of Elections, Joe Scott, and then candidate for Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Election, Willis Howard. So welcome to the show, That Part Podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right,
you
let's get
got
this
some
party
impressive
started.
resumes. Yeah. So I have the first question. We're going to jump right into it, guys. And so I would like for you both to answer this, and we'll start out with you, Mr. Scott. What are things people can do to become an educated voter? And what are you doing in the community now as a Broward County Supervisor of Election? And Willis Howard, what do you plan to do as Supervisor of Elections? And so, Joe Scott, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the most important thing people can do to be an educated voter is to seek out reliable sources of information. And, I don't get too much into telling people which source of information. All I'd say is that people should make sure that the source they choose to follow is actually reliable, and maybe look to a few different sources and don't just rely on one source of information. So that's, to me, the most important thing people can do is to just follow the news, follow what's going on, but make sure that you're actually getting that information from a reliable source.
That
Sure.
part. That part.
And Willis, your take on that? And if elected, what do you do? What is your plan to engage voters in the community?
Well, I want to expand it for the first time. Fortunately for Joe, he was able to take on a supervisor of elections office after we had a lot of great supervisor of elections prior to him. In Miami-Dade County, this will be the first time in more than 80 years that we'll have a supervisor of elections office. So we're going to be basically in the genesis of creating this department. One, we have to take them from the county over to the state. We're not really sure what that's going to look like. We got almost 300 employees, and these employees, we don't know if these employees are going to stay. Right now, there's a mass exodus to go to water and sewer or parks and rec, anything that's within the county, because everyone knows the county pays extremely well and the state really doesn't. So the uncertainty on our side as it relates to employees and what it's going to look like come January 10th, it's pretty much unknown. One thing I did was I asked the current supervisor of elections last year, if I was to win, would she stay on? And she said I was the only one who had asked her, and she had agreed, and asked her would her executive staff stay on as well. And they all agreed, because I can't do that without them. They've been doing it day in, day out. I will be a fool to try and do this transition thinking I'm on my own person. I'm an administrator who's going to be working with my fellow employees. So just giving the public that reassurance that it's not just Willis Howard coming over and it's the Willis Howard show. No, it's still the same supervisor of elections you saw the year before and the year before that did and executed great elections in the state of Florida, and that we'll be working, meticulously and to see what we can change and what we can expand. But the first thing is going to be us getting our feet, wet, as you will, in this new water that we're going into. So I wish that we could hit the ground running and say, I'm going to change the website, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. Let me first find out if we're going to have the human resources, if we're going to have all the right employees, and all the, I guess I'll get into it later, all the administrative orders, because with Joe Scott's department, those rules and that way has been in place for so long. We have a lot of rules that were made by our county commissioners and our mayor. All those disappear come November 10th. They're all gone. So anything that the county executed, like Miami-Dade County executes where we have to put Haitian Creole on the ballot. That's a county ordinance. And I'm sure Joe can speak to that as well. It's not a state ordinance. We don't have to do it. So now I'll be reading from the same sheet of music that Joe and the other 66 supervisor elections read off. Do we need Creole? Do we take on the extra expenditure? But it's not going to be mandated. But because we have so many Haitian Creole speakers in Miami-Dade County, I'm going to be very, very cognizant on how we go about that. So it will be status quo for now until we can make some adjustments. But I'm thinking those things will probably make it easier and better for folks to at least say, I think it's getting better. I think I'm ready to go vote, or the experience was good.
That's what's up. All right. I'm jumping out with one of the biggest questions. I come with the layman side, you know what I mean? So especially for my audience. So something that I've heard, something that I've used even in the past, not ashamed to say it, because we grow and we learn and we build. But a question I would love both of you to answer as well. But I'm going to start with you, Joe. I hear it a lot. My vote doesn't count. Can you debunk these myths of, people saying that their vote doesn't count? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, so that's just a absolutely absurd thing to say if you live in the state of Florida. We can go back, and I know for a lot of the young people now, they might have been babies or not even born yet when the 2000 election happened. And in that 2000 election, we came within 500 votes. You look at a state that has 20 million people, 500 votes is nothing. It just comes down to basically who got more people to show up. And that's how, a major difference between the two candidates in that race and which direction our country ended up going in. And it came so close. But we've seen that over and over again here in the state of Florida, where we have these incredibly close elections. And the way that a lot of what I think people say that about that is because they're talking about the Electoral College. But the fact is that Florida is one of the largest, is the third largest state in terms of Electoral College, and it's winner take all. So whoever wins the state of Florida gets all of those electoral votes. So in a state that always comes so close, we need to get everybody out to vote, because if we actually manage to get enough people out to vote, it can absolutely make a difference and completely shift the third largest batch of electoral votes, and could definitely shift who ends up getting elected president. So for people living in Florida, it's insane that anybody would think that they don't need to participate.
That's what's up. Thank you. Willis?
Well, just an election that I was so proud of, being administered by Joe Scott in Broward a couple of years ago. It got down to about 5 votes. 5 votes. It was the closest congressional race at the time, I believe, in U.S. history. 5 votes. So we could have made this very specific. We could have said, hey, Tom, you didn't vote yesterday. How do you know? It came within 5 votes. And it was Janie, John, and we could mention the 5 people who made the difference. So people were like, oh, it doesn't matter. That night, we were down 28 votes. And in the state of Florida, we allow something called curing, where you have a chance to fix your ballot within a certain period of time. And if you can cure your ballot within that time, that vote will be counted. So we had a number of folks that night, Tuesday night, that they had voted, but something wasn't quite right with the process. So we went in there, got the affidavits, got the information, and had their votes counted. So that next day, we went from being down 28 to being up 5.
Wow.
And all we could think about all day long, and believe me, I've been running campaigns for 24 years. And I tell folks, you are 1,000% in charge of the effort. You are not in charge of the outcome. That's God and the voters. So hopefully you did your work before you meet one of them, God or the voters. So I want folks to know that, you got to EPMD reference, like Lotto, you got to be in it to win it.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe it, then Donald J will spin it. I don't want to keep going. You're accustomed to anybody who was around in the 90s. But yeah, you've got to be in it to win it. And most folks love complaining. I heard a joke one time and it said, certain folks, I think he said to use the word Negroes love not knowing. You've got to stay involved. You've got to stay on top, and you've got to get engaged. Some people love just sitting on the sideline, throwing rocks, throwing bottles. Hey, that guy didn't. Did you vote? No, I didn't vote. Hey, those are the loudest people trying to tell folks it doesn't work, but they haven't even participated. You've got to participate. And then once you participate, and if we can get to a point where participation is at an 80, 90% level, it makes things so much easier. Because now everyone's voted, everyone has had a chance, and now you can't get mad at the other person because you executed your ability to go in there and execute your voice and say what you want to have. So yeah, your votes count, but you got to get in it. If you're sitting home and you didn't vote, yeah, you can talk stuff with everybody else, and that gets into the disinformation.
Wow.
So my next question, it's for both candidates, but Joe, since you're, the experienced one in this position, I want to know from you, and Willis, I'll give you a chance to also explain in your own words. What does the role of supervisor of elections include, and why is it important? Because I think some people may not understand this position. So Joe, can you break that down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so nothing less than being responsible for everything that happens and doesn't happen in terms of administering these elections. So we are the ones who are responsible for securing the locations where we're going to use for early voting sites, for where the drop box locations will be, where the polling places will be on election day, hiring and training all of the people who are going to work at those early voting sites, those election day polling places. We make sure that people are able to get registered to vote. So we maintain the voter rolls for our county, which doesn't just include adding new people to the voter rolls as they register, but also figuring out who should be removed from the voter rolls, either because they passed away, sometimes because people are convicted of a felony, or they're given a mental adjudication that they're not mentally capable of voting anymore, or they've simply moved away and they're not living here in the state of Florida anymore, and we have to remove them from the voter rolls. So we do everything from maintaining the rolls, training poll workers, securing locations, and then, of course, the biggest part of it being, just tabulating those votes on election night, getting the results and posting them so that people can see who won and who lost the elections. So just everything you can think of in terms of making these elections happen, we have to plan it out and execute and make sure it happens.
Mm. And that's every election, not just presidential. Like, is there every single election in the county that happens from local dog catcher to up to the president?
Absolutely. So primarily, like, our primary responsibility has to do with those like county, state, federal elections. When it comes to the cities really have a lot of flexibility in how they conduct their elections. But I'll say in Broward County, all of our city elections happen through my office, and as well as we have special districts. So there's a lot of different things that you'll see on your ballot, and a lot of different governmental entities that exist that people don't really think about. But yeah, we handle elections for all of those, some that are required by law for us to handle, and some are simply contracting with us to handle their elections. So there's really a lot of different entities and organizations that we are conducting elections for.
I'm going
So
to give you a
interesting.
chance. Oh, I'm sorry, PK.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm like, when I learn something, I light up, man. So that was interesting, to talk about how they can be contracted to handle elections for the municipalities. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
And it's so new for our 34 municipalities. They've never had that luxury of now dealing directly with a supervisor of elections versus dealing with the county mayor and the county commission. So now I get to establish relationships with these municipalities and probably talk to them from a different perspective now of, when we start talking about voter turnout, a lot of it is associated with how some of these municipalities have their elections. Like, you have some cities have them on a Tuesday in February, the next city a Tuesday in March, the next city in May. It's like, what? And you think they want higher turnout, but they love low turnout. They love when it's 8 or 9% because it's controlled. They're hoping it's like, I didn't know there was an election in March. I hope to mimic Joe Scott's department. I think him and the Palm Beach, SOEs, they have some great, best practices when it comes down to bringing everybody into the fray, where you have 1 or 2 elections throughout the county per year, and have those municipalities get under one of those umbrellas. Either you go in August or you go in, like, say, May. It just makes it so much easier for us in preparation. We don't have to, our department is like, I guess it's Uber Eats during the pandemic. You was inside and outside that restaurant every day because no one was coming out. Everybody wanted something. That's Miami-Dade elections. Every 2 to 3 months, we're preparing for war. And then when you tell them, how how much money you'll save if you just do it under the counties? Yeah, but I might not win. So some people think it's just something simple. No. These people do like 8 and believe me, I've been part of those races where we're having it on, I believe City of Miami does it even more oddly. They have it on a Monday. No one else does that. It's pretty weird. And it just throws people off because we're busy with taxes, picking up the kids, paying rent. You think we're going to have to be able to keep up with, you just moved across the street to this new municipality. You could tell by the garbage can is different, but they don't have their elections on in August. They have theirs now in September. What? Yeah, and they're going to have a runoff, not in November. They're going to have it in 3 weeks. So everyone has their own rules. So what Joe was saying, that some of these municipalities have their own rules and laws under their charter, they become the supervisor of elections for their municipality, still dealing with the bigger supervisor of elections for the county. And we go and assist them, still within the rules and laws, but they don't have their own machines. They don't have their own tabulating machines. That's all going to be us or Joe who has that. So we work with them within the law to get their thing executed, but they're pretty much in control.
That's what's up. So listen, Willis, you're running, as a candidate for Miami-Dade Supervisor of Elections, and Joe, you're actually running for re-election, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
All right, and you both are running as Democrats, right?
Mhm.
What pressure is there running as Democrats in that position of supervisor for election, or in your case, running for re-election, Joe Scott? What are the pressures of people just looking at y'all as like y'all just gonna cheat off the back? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's just they're not even giving you a chance. They just already looking at you as like, all right, how y'all gonna cheat us? Can you talk about those pressures and how you deal with that, Joe?
Yeah. So, and I get sometimes people will mention that, they'll ask me if I think it would be better for as an election official to be able to run as no party affiliation, right? So there are a lot of positions, our city commissioners usually run without party affiliation, right? So they run as, I honestly am happy that I'm able to just be honest about who I am. And I think it's better that way, because I feel like when these people have to run under this nonpartisan type of an election, then they have to like guard against saying certain things or hide who they are. When in truth, you can go and pull somebody, look at somebody's voter registration and see how they're registered, right? So I like the fact that I can just be open. Yes, I am a Democrat, and why should you trust me if you're a Republican? Why should you trust me to count your votes? Well, I'm not necessarily asking you to trust me. We put a great system in place, and we have a lot of transparency, and we put a lot of effort into making sure that the systems and the transparency is there. So it's not about trusting me. You can come look at how we do things. You can come look at how our operation is run, and you can see that it's a professionally run organization that's done in a way that it really doesn't matter what my opinion is. At the end of the day, we're just counting the votes and reporting the results. That's all we're doing. So you can come down and check us out. You can see how things work, see that our equipment is tabulated. We do logic and accuracy tests before the elections take place. We do these things to make sure that people have that confidence. Now, what kind of pressure do I get being a Democrat from, say, other Democrats? None. Okay. Everybody knows that, for one thing, they know better. Okay. Some of us may have heard a certain story about a certain high level office holder who called an election official on the phone and said, hey, I need you to find me 11,800 votes in your state so I can, because I won the election. I want you to find those votes so that everybody else sees that I won. Right. And I'll tell you what, I wish somebody would. I don't think that doesn't happen with us. Okay. So nobody's calling me up making those kind of demands. When I had this election that Willis was talking about earlier, they came down to 5 votes. You think somebody got on the phone and asked me to find 5 votes? No. and it would be appalling if it did happen. So the thing is, there's not really the pressure. The one thing is that as an elections official, we really need to not talk about stuff that's on the ballot. So how I feel personally and how I plan to vote, for one thing, everybody doesn't vote the party line every time, right? You might have individual candidates or individual issues where you differ from your party. So you can make whatever assumptions about how I'm going to vote, but you don't know for sure. And unless you are a family member or a close friend, you're never going to have any idea how I'm voting, because I don't talk about it publicly. And as like somebody running for office right now, people want to do these endorsement questionnaires. And sometimes on these questionnaires, they'll want to ask you questions about how you feel about a particular issue that might be on the ballot, because we have these questions, these constitutional amendments that are going to be on our ballot this fall. So they want to ask me how I plan to vote on these. I can't tell you how I plan to vote. I'm an elections official. I serve on the canvassing board, and I cannot tell anybody publicly how I plan to vote. So that would be the one thing that everybody else who's running for office is able to talk about, that aspect of how they plan to vote on this or that. Whereas as an elections official, I can't do that. So that would be the one thing that's difficult for me.
That's what's up. Willis, again,
That was a good answer, Joe.
I think you have it tougher Well, I don't even think, I know you have it tougher in Miami-Dade County as a Democrat, seeking that supervisor of election position, and them, trusting you or feeling that you're going to come in there with certain type of energy. And I would like you to also speak about that and your approach.
Well, the beauty is, 5 years ago, I learned about Joe Scott when he was running. And even when I read his resume and read his accomplishments, it let me know of the type of person that we were putting in that position. And it's a testament to who we are by us having to have these great, elaborate, resumes, where probably folks 10, 20 years ago who got in these seats probably just got it because they were working for the election department for 25 years. All of a sudden, they just moved in it. So they're getting the best of the best. And folks should feel good about all the things we did prior to even thinking about taking this job. So as a Democrat, last 24 years, now I decide to run. I don't know why my crazy self wanted to run, where Black folks decide, I think we might lead the Democratic Party this year. Well, hold on. Now everybody wants to leave? I think I want to get out and say out loud, I'm voting for Trump and not Biden. Hold on, fellas. Hold on. Give me one more cycle, and then you can start a mass exodus. So I find myself now oftentimes having to explain or clarify the Democrats' position. What's going on with Biden? What's going on with the immigrants? Hey, y'all care about us? Y'all kicking us out of our homes? Black Democrats don't care about Black people. Look at it. And here I am saying, hi, my name is Willis Howard. I'm running 2000 elections as a Democrat. And then here comes the blows, and I got to fight it off. And there's only certain, in these positions, unfortunately, Joe, and you probably can attest, these are boring positions. We're administrators. You're not going to see us on a dais. You're not going to see us hitting gavels and out there saying, you're going to vote and you must vote. No. We're administrators. We have the Secretary of State that is watching us like a hawk. Inside the Secretary of State now, they have a division, which is a policing division for elections, and they have powers and money and employees. They're going to be watching us like hawks for us to make that mistake. So luckily, there are a lot of things in place, a lot of laws in place, and a lot of other people watching over what happens there, not just us. So it is difficult running as a Democrat today than it was 4 years ago. And in most cases, we look around for Democratic strongholds. And in Broward, it was the southern part of Broward, Miramar's and all that good stuff. Now you look at those places, some of those places have just been there. They've been, what's the word I'm looking for? When a lot of folks have moved out, a lot of folks new folks have moved in. These are all new voters. We don't know their patterns. We don't know what type of Democrat you were in New York, what type of Republican you were in California. We got to deal with these folks now, and they got a whole different way of doing elections, and they got to get used to our ways of doing elections. So it's difficult right now. And because we're running these partisan races in Miami-Dade County, we've never challenged this local Democratic Party to get behind African Americans as Democrats nationwide. Whereas 5 years ago, I remember Commissioner Holness giving me a call. Hey, we're going 5 Black people. We putting somebody in every race. I'm like, I'm always gung ho. All right, bro, let's go ahead. So there was a Black person running for supervisor of elections, a Black person running for clerk of the courts, a Black person running for public defender, a Black person running for was it clerk? And I think it's a Black person running for property appraiser. State attorney.
Yeah,
right now. And believe me, when we got there, they were telling us, you can't win countywide. You're Black, you can't win countywide. And you would think that was the Republicans saying that to us. Those were white Democrats and Hispanic Democrats and other Black Democrats who also believe that Black Democrat can't win countywide. But, we're sitting here right now looking at the Black supervisor of elections. All 5 of those positions are held by African Americans right now in Broward County. That was a testament to people saying your vote don't count. Last time I checked, there was no Black majority in Broward County. It's when people get out there and vote. 90% in my county, 90% of every registered Black person in Dade County is registered in the Democratic Party. That means they have a lot of say-so. So they love to tell Black folks, oh, you know, Black people don't vote, Black people don't turn out. But I know in Miami-Dade County, Miami Gardens has a 33% turnout rate. North Miami has a 28% turnout rate. Miami Beach, second largest city, mostly Anglo and Hispanic. In Miami-Dade County, just had a mayoral election 6 months ago, 9% turnout. So
Wow.
we see the real numbers. We know what it is, but they always say we don't vote. But every time you turn around, someone's in our church looking for our vote. Someone's looking for an endorsement in our area. Someone's standing on a podium dancing and taking pictures. So if we don't vote, why are you here? Because we do vote.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks for breaking that down.
Yeah, that was dope. Really good.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about our returning citizens or ex-felons. In 2018, voters overwhelmingly passed Amendment 4, granting voting rights to returning citizens. However, the last 6 years have not been easy for those wanting to vote, and they're uncertain of their status. Joe, I want to start with you. How will you use your position, or how have you used your position to make sure that those who are eligible to vote, especially our returning citizens, get registered?
That's a great question, Janae. And I'll say this. It was intentionally made more difficult than it had to be. But we've learned a lot, because I think a lot of us didn't realize just how disorganized and disjointed our criminal justice system is until this happened. But I'll say what I do to try to use the way I use my position to try to encourage people or try to get more people to participate is just by encouraging folks to exercise their rights. So here's the facts. What that constitutional amendment did, all right, it wasn't just a regular law getting passed. What we did was we amended the Constitution for the state of Florida. And we've said directly in the Constitution that once you have completed all of the terms of your sentence, once you're out of incarceration, you're off of probation, you've paid your fines, you've paid your fees, as long as that conviction was not for murder or a sexual assault, a sexual conviction, right? If you're one of those people on the list that has to go check in, right? As long as that's not you, you're not looking for anybody's permission to register and vote. It's up to you. You know you finished your sentence. You know you paid your fees. You know you completed all the terms of your sentence. You paid your restitution, whatever you had to do. You should register and you should vote. 100% participate. People are waiting for the government to give them permission, and that's just part of the game. Or they just say, I'm going to stay out. I heard somebody told me, well, I got arrested for drunken disorderly back in the 90s. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but that doesn't sound like a felony. I don't think you ever lost your right to vote.
Wow.
So why aren't you voting? Why aren't you participating? Well, I ain't fooling with that. I saw what happened to them people that they went and arrested. And it's like, come on. People fought for you to have this right. If you have served your time and you are off of probation, minus the people that are excluded that we already talked about, but if that ain't you, you have your right to vote. Automatically, it's in the Constitution, and you should go and register, and you should vote.
Thank you. Willis, can you speak to that point as well, and what you'll do as if elected as Miami-Dade Supervisor of Elections to make sure that returning citizens and disenfranchised voters are registered to vote?
Well, in Miami-Dade County, we have a real loose way of doing politics here. I think when people come to Miami-Dade County, they're like, wow, this is really the wild, wild west when it comes down to elections.
Yes.
And there's some things that the Republican-controlled legislature did do over the last 15, 20 years. You know, if you look back in 1824, the biggest issues for government were guns and voting. Here we are in 2024, still guns and voting. As a matter of fact, this legislature got tired of even dealing with guns. So they said last year, just carry them. Let's bring in these 101 additions that they wanted to add to Florida election law. They presented 101 changes. They only implemented, I think, Joe, maybe 10 or 12, but they had 101. But they turned around and said, just carry your gun. Don't worry about it. We can't deal with it. We have to figure out a way to slow this down, because Republicans first started out with vote by mail, absentee balloting. Once upon a time, to do an absentee, you had to have a reason. I was sick. I was this. I'm not ambulatory, blah, blah, blah. Then we did away with that around 2005. For any reason, you just wanted to vote from home, you could vote from home. So this was something that they mastered, and it was able for them to get a majority and then a supermajority in the legislature. But for years, the state of Florida was governed by Democrats. Democrats were controlling the House and the Senate. Then all of a sudden, they figured out some new ways of getting through there. So now when we start using vote by mail and it start working for us, hey, we got to change that up. We don't want you using drop boxes. We don't want you using vote by mail. Hey, guys, this doesn't work. But now their boy is back on the ballot, and they start realizing, wow, Republicans are not asking for vote by mails. Hey, don't worry what we said last year about it's bad. It's now good. Come on back. But we have to look for these little nuances, because every time you make a change like that, you throw one or two people off, because it's easy to get people to go back and watch a great Netflix series. It's easy to get people to watch that part on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I'm not watching Channel 7. I'm not watching MSNBC. I'm going to go to YouTube, because they're all lying and they're all confusing. And we got to make sure we don't pour into that confusion, because I think that gets us to a point where folks don't know what they should do when it comes down to, I know I didn't get convicted. I know my thing wasn't adjudicated, but I don't want to go to jail just for happenstance. I know they made a rule this year to indemnify the Supervisor of Elections to make it not their fault, even though they're the ones who give you your voter registration card. So now it's to a point where you can get a voter registration card, you fill out the form, but I'm a Supervisor of Elections now. The law says it ain't my fault if you got one. It's up to you to make sure you followed the law, you've cleaned up your case, you've met all the requirements, and you believe you're eligible. Imagine we did that with driver's licenses. Hey, I'm gonna give you a driver's license, but it's up to you to find out if you're okay with driving and all that stuff. And so no one in the driver's license office can say, we gave it to them, but it's not our job to really guarantee it. No, if you issued it, so you're supposed to be in charge of what do I need to do, and you should be looking at a screen that tells you, yes, I've met all the requirements and there's a green light. That's what we don't have. There's no universal system for all 67 counties that anyone could just tap in there and say, let me look at you. Okay, Papa Keith, all right, yeah. You're almost there. You need to do A, B, and C, and you should be able to come and vote. There's no access like that.
Yeah. Wow. So
sound like that's by design.
Hey, can I jump one more thing just to be clear, y'all? It is absolutely not. It is a very complicated thing. Now, some of y'all may remember that there was this thing happened back in 2022 where they went out and arrested a bunch of people across the state. A lot of this body cam footage ended up going viral, and we were seeing these people that were just confused. Like, I'm getting arrested for what? People getting arrested for voting. Imagine, and I've been playing this game in my mind recently where I'm imagining going back to that day. And I would love to ask some of these officials that were behind that, hey, just real quick, can a person convicted of a felony in New York vote in Florida? I bet their answer would have been a little different back in 2022 than it is right now. Right? Okay. So I'll tell you what, if anybody out there didn't get that reference, go ahead and Google state of Florida. Can a person convicted of a felony in New York vote in Florida, and see how that story changed dramatically in the past few weeks.
That part.
It sure did. But just for the record, if I am convicted of a felony in a different state, can I vote in Florida?
So apparently, if you're convicted of a felony in New York, you can absolutely vote in Florida.
Oh,
this
just
is
New York.
Brand new to us.
Just New York.
Brand new to us.
Wow.
This is brand new.
What about
This is- I
around
can't say every
Mar-a-Lago? Could
state.
you vote around Mar-a-Lago at all? I'm just checking. I'm asking for a friend. Hey, listen, this is great information. Just, if people are tapping in halfway, we are focused on voting. We have Joe Scott, the Broward County Supervisor of Election. We also have Willis Howard, who's a candidate for Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections. It's going to be the first of its kind coming up in this election in November, correct?
Yes, August.
In November.
Well,
All right. August, excuse me. August
August
primary
primary.
and then November. All right. So I just want to also interject and shout out Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. They're doing a lot of work based on the question that Janae just asked. If you need more information, if you need some fees paid, look up Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, FRRC. Shout out to Desmond Meade. And then also my next question, you kind of tapped into it already, Willis, but I just want to maybe tackle it from a different space. You talked about vote by mail. It seems to be all the new shiny toy, right? That's all we're hearing now. Joe, you've done a great job of promoting vote by mail. And I didn't get it at first, but I'm starting to understand it a lot more now, right? And like Willis previously said, it almost wasn't for us. And then now it's become the gift that keeps on giving, right? So I want you guys to kind of dive into why vote by mail is so important, specifically for working class people.
I think just time is the biggest benefactor. So let's say you want to vote by mail. You requested from Joe this week. Most likely it's going to be mailed out next week. You have 35 more days to turn that in. 35 days to figure out if it was counted or not counted. 35 days to find out if you had a problem with your voter registration. 35 days to find out if you can cure it or not cure it. 35 days to find out, like, whoopsie, you forgot the signature. You better come in here and fix it. You have just so much time. You can take it to your church. You can ask questions. You can take your vote by mail to and watch one of these forums on that part to find out, let me hear about these candidates and go one by one. You just have, there's no pressure. There's no one looking over your shoulder. You get over that whole, you got to have the right ID. Black people don't have ID. And I got a whole thing that I push back on all the time. You know what? I got to take 1 minute to say, because every place that I go, I make sure that folks, and especially folks who are now running for this seat and they want to be Democrats and they start talking to our people, I don't want you to come in there and say, well, there's a problem with voter ID and you know who they're talking about. And they look at us, wink, wink. And I look back at them like, I don't know who you're talking about. Last time I checked, Black people open up bank accounts. Black people love going to the club. Pop Keith, you love going on planes.
Yes.
I think we all drove today. Black people love getting ID. Black people have no problem with ID. Black people got ID. Why do you keep saying that Black people don't have ID? But you know what that means, where you have another person coming into Florida for the first time, coming into the United States for the first time, and the first thing they think, oh, poor Black people. They can't even get IDs. And you're thinking, what? How you think I got in this club? I got ID. What we want to do is what we do. But when you start thinking everything negative and all of a sudden you pan over to the Black people, it's like, why do you have that camera looking at us when you said we don't have ID? And you got to be responsible, and wherever we can help. And that's why that organization with Desmond Meade is so important. If you need help with it, we have organizations we could point to you to, but our percentage of folks who have an issue with ID is probably lesser than the other communities that are having problem with IDs as well. But they never talk about them when they talk about IDs. But there's a two-tier system. You have a tier 1 ID version of ID, and you have a tier 2. You can have your Costco card that has your picture on it and has your signature on it. And then you could have a credit card that has your name on it. Together, that's your ID. One has your signature, one has your picture. You don't necessarily need a driver's license. And people keep saying you got to have a job. You don't necessarily have a driver's license. You need 2 forms, one that shows your picture and your name, and one that shows a signature. If your voter registration has your signature, your Social Security has your signature, you could bring that and your Costco card and go in there and vote. But they want to tell you that it's only Florida ID. It's only a driver's license. You got to learn. And one quote I love telling folks, for those who do not study politics, for those who don't want to study politics, they will end up voting for fools that do.
Mm.
Nice. Joe, please, voting by mail. Why is this, or why should it be so important to working class people?
So I think vote by mail is a great way, at least requesting your vote by mail ballot. The thing about requesting your vote by mail ballot is that it gives you all the options. There is a deadline. 12 days before the election is when you have a cutoff where you can't request a vote by mail ballot anymore. If you want to have all the options available to you, just go ahead and put in that request. The request is good for the entire election cycle. So it's good until basically December of this year, of 2024. If you go and request your vote by mail right now, it'll be good until December of this year. Then you can go back and request again in January of next year, and it'll be good until December of 2026. Now, the reason you want to go ahead and request your vote by mail and request it for all the elections, especially like what Willis talked about, is that you might have special elections pop up. You might live in a city where your municipality has elections at an odd time. If you're signed up for vote by mail, you will get a ballot in the mail so you can vote, even if you had no idea that there was an election happening.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just show up.
Yep.
So you should do that. We should try to get as many people as possible to do that first thing in January, because that solves that problem. I mean, Willis was right on the money when he talked about this issue with municipalities holding elections at odd times so that they have low turnout, because that makes it easier for the people in power to stay in power. That is spot on. And making sure that you don't miss that election, the best way for you to do that is to request your vote by mail. Now, again, the good thing for people to know is it doesn't mean you have to vote by mail. You can only vote one time, but you can choose to vote in person if you want to vote in person. But when you request that vote by mail ballot, you have that option. Some people like to use their vote by mail ballot as like a sample ballot. So they'll get the best of both worlds. I like voting from home because I can sit around the kitchen table with my family, talk to my friends. I could spend time looking stuff up online if there's something on that ballot I don't know about. And then I can make a good decision, as opposed to I'm standing up in a booth and I'm not as comfortable. And then I end up making quicker decisions because I'm somewhere where I'm not comfortable. If you're doing it from the comfort of your home, you can take your time. So people get the best of both worlds by saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill this ballot out at home. Then I'm going to bring it with me to the site and use it as my template when I go to fill out the ballot. Once I'm standing up in a booth and I want to hurry up and fill out this ballot, I've already gone through and made all the difficult decisions. At this point, I could just fill it out real quick, go turn it in, scan it. Vote by mail is a tremendous tool and a great way to make sure that we get better and higher participation in our elections. And that's why I'm a big fan. That's why I'm a big supporter. And I know that's something I've shared with you many times, PK. And I know one day we're going to get you over the hump because you still like to go on election day. But we're gonna get there. We're going to get there. We're working on it.
It's just the media stuff, man. You know, it's just the media stuff. But I do have plans of voting by mail for the first time this year. So thank you.
All right.
You pushed that. You convinced me. You too, Willis. Thank you.
Joe, quick follow up for vote by mail. Once I fill that out, do I put it in my mailbox? Do I have to go to a post office? Do I have to go to a voting site to submit it? How does that work? For people who
so I know in Broward County, we do pay for postage. We provide you with an envelope that has the address. The return address is on there. The postage is paid. So you can just put it in that return envelope. You have to sign the envelope, sign and date the envelope, and then put it in your mailbox. So there's a place on there for you to sign it. And that's really important because that signature has to match in order for us to be able to use that, for us to be able to actually open that ballot and count your vote. But again, if your signature doesn't match, we will contact you and let you know so you can fix it. But the quick answer to your question is yes, you can mail it back to us. If you want to bring it to us and drop it in a Dropbox, you can do that as well. What's really important on returning your ballot is that it has to reach the Supervisor of Elections by 7 p.m. on election night. So it really doesn't matter when you mail it. It matters when we get it at the Supervisor of Elections office. And it has to be to us by 7 p.m. on election night. So for a lot of people, especially as you get closer to election day and you're not sure if the Postal Service is going to get it to us on time, the best thing to do is to get it to one of our drop boxes and go drop it in that drop box. Then you can drop it in that drop box at 6:59 on election night and you're good to go. I don't encourage anybody to do that, but technically, if you did do that, your vote will definitely count.
I wanted to add some what we were talking about when the municipalities get ready to have their own municipal election. And I remember at that time, Oliver Gilbert was then the mayor of Miami Gardens, and he had told me about this legacy dream he wanted to do by building these state-of-the-art, parks and having money for policing. And he's like, well, we need to do a bond, so we want to have an election. So as we were going back and forth on how we're going to do this, and I tell him, you can request an absentee-only campaign. He's like, no, we can do absentee only. I said, yeah, you're the supervisor of elections. You'll be instructing the county on how you want to do your election. So at the time, he didn't know he had that right. So then, he's always curious. He's like, okay, let's look into it. We looked into it. Next thing you know, we told the county, we want absentee only. So there was no early voting. There was no election day voting. They mailed out 66,000 absentee ballots. It was the first time in the state of Florida done, and it was the largest absentee only campaign ever done in the state of Florida, even to this day. Wow. And we had not one complaint from the ethics department, not one complaint from the state attorney's office, not one complaint in the Miami Herald or the Sun Sentinel. It was one of the cleanest run absentee only campaigns ever done. And I told at that time, Mayor Gilbert, yes, I'm glad that we won the bond, but we should take a lap just for showing folks how easy it is and how clean the process is when you don't have nefarious characters involved and just knowing the law. But it made it so much easier for everyone. No one can say, well, I didn't know about the vote. When do y'all vote for these parks and I didn't hear about it? Ma'am, everyone got one. And you had 27 days to sit with that and ponder. Do you want the park? Don't you want the park? Do you want it? So there was only one valid question, very simple. But no one, like Joe said, there's no pressure. Take your time, look at it, don't look at it, go look at the parks, go back and hear what type of parks and things they were going to build. But as you ride around the beautiful city of Miami Gardens now, you're like, these are some amazing parks. And yeah, you voted for that, but we did it through an absentee only campaign.
Wow.
And studies have shown that you
So
get higher.
This might be a good time.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Joe?
I'm saying this might be a good time, since we've been talking about how important vote by mail is, to let people know how to request a vote by mail ballot. So it's actually done county by county. The voter registration part is actually a statewide system. But when it comes to requesting your vote by mail ballot, you have to go to your county's Supervisor of Elections website. For me, that's browardvotes.gov. And you can go there, the button right at it says vote by mail, and you click it. It'll take you about 2 minutes to make that request. So if anybody is on the fence and now they're convinced that, yes, I want to make sure I'm on the list for vote by mail, I may not decide to vote by mail, but at least I want to get it in the mail. It doesn't cost you anything. You might as well sign up and get that ballot sent to you.
And Willis, how do people sign up for vote by mail in Miami-Dade County?
Miami-Dade.gov/elections.
Gotcha. Thank you guys for adding that information in, because that's very key. I sometimes, like, when I get really good information, PK, like you, I'm like, I'm all into it. I forgot we were having a whole show going on.
A lot of you guys have been shooting off us a lot of information. And again, just listeners, our watchers, listen, this is a special edition of That Part Podcast. We are focusing on voting. And we're doing this for you again, like, you know what I mean? We all of us, these gentlemen below us, one, wants to do this for a living, one is doing it for a living and looking for re-election. And us two here, excuse me, over there, we just really care a lot, and we're trying to bring these gentlemen to you to understand how important it is to debunk a lot of things you just don't understand. I'm learning so much from this interview. Listen, you guys have been so amazing with your time. We have a few more questions, right, Janae? That we'd like to just run through, but we really appreciate everything that's happening thus far. This was really a special edition for the voters,
Yeah, nobody can say they don't know how to vote after this.
right?
Now you can finally say, well, whatever you said, I still ain't voting, and walk out. I'm like, okay, that's better. I'd rather you just say that way. Because
Joe, I have a specific question for you. There's a lot of talk about the Florida legislator, and we just talked about it too with removing people from the rolls, and that was effective January 1st, 2024, the vote by mail rolls, more specifically. What are you doing in the Broward County Elections Office to make sure people understand it, and what are you doing to communicate what that process is? To let them know they need to re-enroll to vote by mail?
Short answer is everything. So we have ads running on the radio. We've got TV ads going. We've got billboards. We've got bus shelters. The big, those big posters in the bus shelters. And we've got we're doing social media. We're doing text messages, emails, and snail mail, like regular. Sending out the actual form people need to fill out in order to request a vote by mail ballot. We're just sending it to everybody who requested a vote by mail in the past and just saying, hey, you need to do this again. You need to sign up one more time. And we're going to do that. We've already done one of those mailers, and we'll do a couple more. So we'll do a couple more rounds where we just hit everybody by email, by text message, by snail mail, plus having all this mass media going. So when I say everything, I mean literally everything.
Wow.
And just for impact, or just let people understand like how much that had impacted people in the community, can you let them know like what the registration was before and what you guys are like back to this date, like just for all the work that you put into it?
Sure. So we had 475,000 people vote by mail in the 2020 election. For us in Broward County, because we have 1.1 million voters, this is almost half, right? So this is the majority of the people who voted in 2020. Now, if you think about it, what was going on in 2020? We had COVID-19. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. People didn't necessarily want to be in public places around other people. I expect that to be a peak. I don't believe we'll see that number for vote by mail. And that's fine, because I think, as long as people vote. So right now, I'm actually pretty proud of where our number was, because we went from having all those people signed up to vote by mail down to zero. Wow. And now we're over 183,000 people, and we're still over 4 months away from the November election. So being where we are with 120 plus days left to go, and we're already approaching that halfway point, I feel pretty good that we're going to have a pretty strong set of folks signed up for vote by mail and we still have a lot more planned in terms of getting the word out. So we haven't even really begun. We're like just sort of, dipping our toe in the water at this point compared to what you guys are going to see over the next couple of months.
That's what's up. Willis, I have a question for you, sir. You mentioned, on the podcast here today that you've managed quite a few elections in your time. How does it feel to be on the other side of it for the first time? You've managed over 20 different elections and worked with so many different people, and now you're on this side of things now. How does that feel, and what's that difference like to you right now?
It's confirmed a lot of things that I thought I knew, but yeah, I do like being a coach more than a player. And I kind of regret telling some of those players out there, hit the linebacker, he's not going to hurt you. And then I go out there and get hit by the linebacker, and now I got to get taped up. Like, it's easier on the sideline to say things versus being out there. Because yeah, I got to talk to 400,000 people. Miami-Dade County is huge. Talking about almost 60 linear miles. We're at now almost 1.4 million voters, 34 cities, and everything is changing so much. So me having to be out there and go through something grueling, because African Americans really don't run countywide in Dade County. It's something brand new too. I don't really even have to know who can I really mimic myself after. But it's nothing easy about it. And sometimes you get a couple of denials. Sometimes you get a couple of doors slammed on you. It's a little different now because so many people don't want to be disturbed. So you go out there, everybody has a fence now. So you got to try and see first, you got to see if you can get through the gate. Then when you do, you knock on the door. They talk you through a Ring camera because they're not coming to the door. Then you send them a piece of mail. And the average person now, I don't know if you realize it, the Consumer Reports talked about it 2 years ago, well, a year ago, that the average person checks their mail now 1 to 2 times a week. And I'm like, wow, I fall into that too. So you get to the mailbox and you need something that's time sensitive. They're not checking it. And the person who checks it stands over the garbage can, throws out all that stuff, and then brings what they see fit into the house. So it's hard to get in touch with them. You send them a text message, they put on there, do not disturb, and now they're off, can't be talked to. You call them on the telephone, they say, take me off the list. You run a commercial and they're no longer on regular cable, they're streaming. And then the first thing they say when they see you at a forum, I never heard of you. And you're like, what are you talking about? You're trying your best not to hear from me. You're doing everything possible not to hear from the candidates, not to hear from government. And then you want to go in there the last day and say, you guys, I never heard of you guys. So it's tougher now because these things didn't exist when I was running these campaigns 2 years ago. You knocked on the door, you mailed them, you called them, somebody was going to be on the other side. So just these new realities means I got to go through these new realities. And I wish that we were almost at 540,000 folks on the vote by mail, 2 years ago before the new law kicked in. We're now at about 220, 230, going to zero last year like everyone else. So we're at 230, less than half. So yeah, we as candidates got to do a lot of work to assist the elections department by telling folks as we go door to door, please sign up for vote by mail. So I think without the campaigns, they work together with SOEs to bring these folks out. So I know in Broward, if it wasn't for all those campaigns going around, bringing those numbers out, some people would just be looking around to see who's on with Dancing to the Stars this week. They're not even paying attention. Or, who's coming next on that part. But we almost got to force people to start paying attention, but their attention levels are so low. They're just not there. So we got to continue to work, continue to have the doors open and the avenues open, that when people are ready to vote, we're ready to receive those people and make sure their votes are counted.
And that's really true. And that's part of the work that we're doing with this podcast. So thanks for stressing that point. Guys, I have a question for both of you. I want to know, and I'll start with you, Joe. And we talked a little bit about it with certain political candidates and elected officials who have straight up denied fair elections. As supervisor of election and as a candidate who wants to be supervisor of elections in Miami-Dade County, how are you prepared to deal with someone who rejects an election that you have administered? Like, what is that process for you guys?
Well, I'll tell you that what's interesting is that it happens all the time. So this whole idea that somebody goes out there, they give it their all, they go and run for office, they're doing this, they believe everywhere they go, people telling them, yeah, I'm voting for you, right? And in their minds, I got this, I'm going to win. And then they don't. They lose. Why? Because people might say they vote for you, but they really don't, right? Or you just have a misperception. You're only going places where everybody agrees with you. You don't go to the places where people don't like you. So you don't understand that you weren't going to win. So this whole idea of people losing their election and then being salty about it, the sore loser was not invented in 2020. We had sore losers before 2020. The only difference that happened in 2020 is that we had a sore loser with a very big megaphone. All right. That's the only thing that changed in 2020. We've been dealing with sore losers for a long time, and we will continue to deal with sore losers. I just hope that we don't see more of that at the, and going forward, that doesn't become more of the norm, because you have somebody with such a high profile who's now making it almost normalized to be a sore loser. That used to be a bad thing back in the day. You're supposed to concede and say, I lost. You be honest about what happened. And I hope that we all can agree that that is the honorable thing to do. That when you lose your election, you say, I lost. Congratulations to my opponent. I wish him or her well. I hope we get back there. I really do. I hope it doesn't get to where everybody's playing this game from now on.
Willis, anything you want to add to that? If you were elected supervisor of elections in Miami-Dade County, how would you deal with somebody saying this didn't happen?
Well, it's just so weird. Once again, it's Miami-Dade County. Miami has always been its own country for a long time. This is why we've been able to survive without a sheriff, but there are 66 sheriffs in Florida. Without a supervisor of elections, but there are 66 supervisor of elections in Florida. Without a property appraiser, but there are 6. Everyone else is doing their thing, but Miami is doing its own thing. So in my case, I have 2 Republicans that came out of the same district. One has just recently switched to Democrat, but the other Republican that's running as a Republican comes directly from the same seat that he sat in when he was in the legislature from the Republican stronghold. And she's now saying that Florida was run okay, but I don't think nationally it was done okay. And she's now the nominee for the Republican Party as supervisor of elections, waiting to see who's going to win on this side. Now, on this side, my competitor, who's now a Democrat, took $500,000 in a political action committee from a Republican donor, but he's supposed to be a Democrat. So it's confusing to me of how are you taking Republican super PAC money as a Democrat, but we're supposed to believe that you're going to be a Democrat at the end of the day. And you have President Trump that has already chimed in on my election. There's no other election in the United States that he has endorsed a supervisor of elections. So he's endorsed my Republican challenger, and my other Republican challenger, who's now a Democrat, is taking Republican money. So no one knows what they're getting. So there's a lot of confusion just on the Democratic side and Republican side. Like, hold on, now I'm getting cross-eyed. I'm getting confused. How is this supposed to be working? So now you have a person who is now maybe not going to go on trial because of what the Supreme Court said last week about his immunity, that has now signaled out one of the largest elections department in this southern region of the United States. And he's now said, you all need to vote for her. You don't think he's going to try and pick up that phone and ask for those 11,000 votes or those 2,000 votes? But you put such a damper and such a twisted look now at anyone looking at Miami-Dade County. It's like, why is he asking, with all the trouble and all the problems around him, he can go out there and endorse Congress people, senators, maybe mayors, but he should not be involved with endorsing supervisors of elections, because you're just getting right into a point of now everyone has to ask the question, is the game going to be called fairly? Because the referee has a sponsor too. We're not referees aren't supposed to have sponsorships when you go watch a Heat game. The Coca-Cola, McDonald's should be on their shirts, not on yours. But if you ever see the referee come out with sponsorships, you better get on your app right quick and cancel that bet, because you have no idea how this game is going to be called and how it's going to end up.
Wow. Listen, man, this has been awesome. Special edition for our voting audience who wants to get down the nitty-gritty about voting, all the nuances, pluses, negatives. Man, you got a show today. My closing questions, Janae, right?
I mean, he kind of almost answered it, because he literally did.
I'm actually going to switch it up, but I think this is a good one because, Joe Scott is running for re-election, and of course, Willis is running for election. My final question for both of them is, starting with Joe, is why should you be reelected as Broward County Supervisor of Election? And for you, Willis, it'll be why should you be elected? To kind of give you guys your spiel. You've been so gracious with your time and your information and stuff like that. I definitely know you guys are up for election. This is a bipartisan show, but you are our guests, and I'll be remiss if I don't give you the opportunity to speak on that.
Well, hey, I appreciate that, PK. That's a good question. I feel like, Broward County Elections Office, we've had our ups and downs over the years, but the last 4 years since I've been there, we've been on a steady climb. We've increased the number of early voting sites. We only had 22 back in the 2020 election. As you go to vote this fall, you'll have 28 early voting sites. So we've expanded early voting. We've expanded drop box locations. We've made it easier than ever before, despite the fact that the state has done everything in their power to make it harder to vote. I'm proud to say that accessibility in Broward County is higher than it's ever been. Our communication systems that we have in place now, the fact that you can now text with your elections office at our main number, the fact that we're texting you and you can text us from the same number, so you're actually communicating with your elections office. The fact that, we switched over to this .gov website so that people know that they're looking at a reliable source of information. I mean, we've done so many things in so many areas in terms of increasing accessibility, improving our cybersecurity, and just making sure that we're doing everything to have free and fair elections, transparent elections in Broward County. And what we'll do over the next 4 years is just continue to make it better, continue to make our communications better than they've been in the past, continue to improve our transparency. We're moving into a new building right now. We want to start doing more educational initiatives, having kids come out on field trips where they can see everything that's going on without interfering in our election process. In the future, when people start trying to lie about elections, we'll have kids in Broward County who know better because they've seen how a good, efficient elections office works. And when they start hearing negativity, they'll say, oh, I know that's not how it works because I've seen it. So we're doing amazing things at the elections office in Broward County. And with another 4-year term, it'll just give me more time to do more of the same and to continue to make you all proud. So that's my pitch. And I hope the people of Broward County will decide to give me another 4 years. I would greatly appreciate it.
That's what's up. And thank you so much for all that you've done as well, man. I've seen it with my own eyes, man. So I salute you on that. Although I can't really say anything more than that. I salute you though. You know what I mean? West Point, I salute you. Willis, this is a clean slate for you. This is the first time this is going to be an elected a seat as Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections. Why should the Miami-Dade County residents vote for you?
Well, this is such an important election for the residents of Miami-Dade County. You're going to be setting up or voting for the person who's going to set up for the future how we run elections in Miami-Dade County. I have great ideas about one. I do want to move the elections department from all the way out in Doral. Or for folks who don't know, the elections department was in the 111 building for almost 45 years, and that was right on the Metro Rail. So you can get on the Metro Rail at 79th Street. You can get a Metro Rail all the way down south. Go check out whatever you got to do at the elections department, get on the Metro Rail and go back. I want to bring that Metro Rail back to transit. I know that the cost of living is very high for employees in Dade County. I know my employees, I do want to try and make sure I put more money back in their pocket. It'd be easier if I can put them on mass transit. And also on election night, when we have police officers and those folks that are bringing those chips back to headquarters, they don't get a special pass to get through our traffic. They have to get the same traffic as everyone else. I want to make that ease of it, of having our security person with that official on the Metro Rail going right into somewhere that's on the Metro Rail, make it easier. I also want to have 2 satellite offices, one in the north and one in the south. It makes it easier for folks in the Miami Gardens, North Miami area, as well as down south, Richmond Heights schools and Key Biscayne area, for them to get to an official site of the SOE if they want to update information, change anything, and all those things. Just those small nuanced changes. Yes, I'll be stealing a lot of things from Joe up north. I'll be taking a lot of things that hopefully he's battle tested, got it approved, worked out all the kinks, and now I can get the best practices from my predecessors throughout the county. And yes, he has the second largest elections department in the state. So he's about maybe 100, 200,000 less than what we have. So he's working on the same scale as us. So if it works for Broward, 9 times out of 10, it'll work for Dade County. It's just letting folks know that I've done all the necessary steps to ensure that they have a great supervisor of elections, someone that they can trust, someone that they know, someone that is very serious about this process and has been okay with this process for 24 years. You know, I do want to put a few CCTV cameras inside of the election department, not where you can see votes, but in a caged area. When absentee ballots go out and when they start coming back in, have that camera where you can actually see that pile of absentee and vote by mail ballots going there. So you can watch it for 35, 40 days. So you can go on miami-dade.gov/elections/VBM, and you by yourself could watch on your phone those votes. Because normally what people, the election deniers say at the end of the day is, you know, they got 100,000 votes inside of the elections department. They didn't even vote. And everybody's starting to run around like, hey, you know, they got 20,000 votes. They didn't count. You know, I want someone that says, no, I've been looking at this boring app for 35 days. And that thing went from 0. I saw the people take it out. And now I look, the place is empty. They've counted all those vote by mails. Those small little things just give so many people so many more reassurances about the process. And it does away with campaigns that do most of the disinformation and misinformation because they're trying to get public opinion on their side, even though they might not have done what they needed to do necessary to actually win. And Joe's right. Everyone says, girl, I got you. Yeah, I'm going to vote for you. Go in there, vote for whoever they want, and then come back out. You're the man. I see it all the time, and they just do not vote for you. And somehow you start believing there must be something trickery going on inside. So you start spreading that rumor while you go hire your attorneys. So just knowing how the process is, knowing where most of the problems are at, and trying to tackle those problems, I think I'll be able to stay on top of it and give everybody exactly what they need and what they deserve in Miami-Dade County. We have so many folks from so many different facets coming to America that can't vote. My Cuban brothers can't vote. My Venezuelan brothers can't vote. Most of my Haitian brothers in America can't vote. There's nothing that's going to stop me from allowing those folks to vote in the United States. And I'm going to do whatever in my power that is going to get them their chance to exercise their right to vote. I'll be right there standing at that threshold to make sure it happens.
That's what's up.
All
right.
Man, that was good. Look at both of us like we in class, like taking notes.
Is this going to be on the test? Is that going to be on the test? That's it.
Guys, make sure you plug your social media, your website, so people can follow you and get more information about who you are. Joe, we'll start with you.
We always start with a joke because if I was still in the military, I would have to salute him all the time because he was an officer. I didn't quite make it there.
Yeah, so we're at our website is browardvotes.gov. That's browardvotes.gov. All of our socials are at Broward Votes. And on the personal side, it's Joe Scott SOE. So at Joe Scott SOE. And to follow the office, it's at Broward Votes.
All right. And I am at votewillishoward.com. And that's at votewillishoward.com and at Vote Willis Howard on Instagram as well as Facebook. And for folks who just want to go on there and find information or update their information on the website, you can go to www.miami-dade.gov/elections. And you can find everything you need from information to updating your voter registration and asking for a vote by mail. Please get that vote by mail. It's going to make life so much easier because you see how hot it is. And everyone's looking for a good excuse, and we got plenty of them going out right now. It's 110 degrees, and it's raining. Great day to Netflix and chill. But I need you to vote from home and get it out the way.
Wow, you on the job already, Willis. I'm telling you. Wow, this was amazing, man. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we wish you the best of luck in your campaign for re-election, Joe Scott, and your campaign for the first ever election for SOE of Miami-Dade County. Willis Howard.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for
Thanks
being
for
on
having
that
us.
part
Appreciate it.
podcast.
Thank you. And Joe, make sure your team knows about High-Low News, because a lot of that stuff that you're saying, I want to make sure that we're getting that to our audience outside of the That Part podcast. Of course, you're a friend of
Yeah,
the
let's
show
do
now,
it.
but yeah, we got to make sure that, because I'm like, a lot of things you're saying, I'm like, man, I didn't even know they were doing that in Broward.
All right, yeah, no, we got to get with y'all. Definitely, for sure. First thing tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
And I
right.
appreciate you two for doing that part.
Mm.
Same
Thanks.
here. By letting us know, probably keep you just your civic engagement outside of just doing your job is exemplary. You have to applaud those things. Because so many folks just do their thing and go home. Every once in a while, you got to get back and try and get these people, because it is trying to justify our existence. And what Just Vote period is doing is putting out that information for folks who don't really want to get into the Democratic thing, don't want to get into the Republican thing, don't want to get into the messiness. They just give me mine and I'll decide on who I want to do. So just having that neutral safe space is amazing. And High-Low News, just having folks that, they're talking about everything everywhere. And I'm glad you're really emphasizing just on our community for us to get a quick snippet, because as I said, no one's really watching the news. Nobody's really paying attention. Now that we can go to High-Low News right quick and get caught up without saying, okay, I'm going to still stay on YouTube. I'm still going to stay on Instagram, but I can get caught up with High-Low News right quick. So not a shameless plug, but it's actually true, because I don't have cable anymore for the first time in 5 months. So every day I got to figure out, okay, where am I going to get my news from?
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank
Wow,
you so much.
we
for that
appreciate the
co-sign,
commercial.
Willis. Yeah. We gotta make sure that's a sound bite. I appreciate
For
it.
real.
And make sure I'm on your media contact list too once you're elected, Mr. Howard.
Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good
All
night.
right, take care.
Guys.
Wow.
Man, that was an educational show. Like that
It
show.
really was. It really
Yeah,
was.
what did you think about it?
I mean, listen, so first of all, this was a special edition. Let's call it the voters edition of That Part podcast, where we had on Joe Scott, the current supervisor of election for Broward County, and of course, Willis Howard, candidate for Miami-Dade Supervisor of Elections. So these guys know elections, they know voting. Willis has had history, of course, with many people's campaign, and Joe's been having a pretty amazing 4 years of being supervisor, man. And I think I'm just blown away of how much I learned. I really felt like a student, even more so than from our past interviews. And in our past interviews, I've learned stuff too, but I think this stuff is so intricate that I was more like,
Yeah. Me too. I felt myself like forgetting, like, oh, you got to go, like, go get your question ready, because, like you said, you think you know about the process, especially like you and I, we're like civically engaged. So I'm like,
Right.
I know I vote by mail, but knowing like the new laws and how they're applied and seeing how it's different from county to county, and
Yeah, the
just
nuances.
what Joe broke down about returning citizens or ex-felons, and he was like, you don't have to go check anything if you did all the things, just register. But
Yeah.
how many people think they have to get some type of certification or approval to go?
Yep.
Like, it's just the misinformation out there is amazing.
And then even Willis debunking the ID thing. Like, you could take your
Oh,
Costco
yeah.
card. I thought it was so dope because he just kind of broke it down on some like real simplicity, right? Like, you could take your Costco card and a credit card and go vote. Like, wow. Like, nobody thinks of that. They think you have to have your driver's license, or maybe if your driver's license is suspended, you can't vote. Like, these are things that just people are just having in their head and just not understanding the true reality of it. And, like, listen, we know that y'all here for the aftermath, which is what the name we came up with for the issue we talk after podcast guests get off. So welcome to the aftermath, by the way. But, we encourage, and we want you to like spread this information for real, you know what I mean? And kind of let your friends and family know, even if they don't have to sit through the podcast and you sat through it, take that information. And, we know that information is power, and let's use it, man. Let's educate the people around us. Cause I know I am now. I'm going on the radio. I have to,
Yeah,
I can't
all of
even
that.
not.
That's how I mean, and I hated to be the one asking and begging Joe to give me information, but I'm like, all of this stuff that you're doing to inform people in Broward County. And here's the tea though, if we want
Mm,
to do the aftermath, when Willis and I didn't want to be negative, but to his point, elections have changed since he started 20 years ago. And that was a
right,
very
right,
valid point. I
right,
think the thing that's missing with a lot of candidates is they're not going to the places where the people are.
right.
So, you know, advertising, not to like be, about us, but advertising with a platform like us or coming on our show or making sure you get an interview with us or different platforms like that, or even like understanding social media and influencers and how that works into your campaign and figuring out your digital game. That's the new thing. Like he said, a lot of those things are
Yeah.
valid. I didn't even think about like people throwing their mail away or not wanting to answer their door. They're talking to you through a
I'm
ring.
guilty
Like
of
I didn't even
everything he
think about
said.
that.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
I'm literally guilty of it. I literally stand over my
All of that.
garbage and throw out all the mailers.
Ask me
But
the last time I
now,
checked my mailbox.
I, but now I would admit I do pay attention to certain things now, more the political stuff. I'll throw away the real estate one because I'm not
Mhm.
selling anything right now. But I would hold on to the political ones and certain ones to do get that information and see what they're saying and stuff like that. You know, so this was really good. This was really really good, and I hope everyone listening really can gather more information from that. And listen, we brought up also FRRC, Florida Rights Restoration, and I just want to reiterate on that. Um, the thing about me even bringing them up. So you just mentioned it. So with I like to believe that with Just Vote period, we want to create partnerships, right? So you just finished saying like going where people at. So that's kind of like our job because we're like lifestyle advocacy, right? So you
Mhm.
may have like, Florida Rising, great group doing their thing, right? But we're not them. You know what I'm saying? We carry a lot of the same initiatives that they may have, but we're more lifestyle version of them. So we are going to be in the clubs. We are going to be, in those different places. So even with Just Vote, it's like I want those type of partnerships where people will come up and be like, hey, I saw you at this brunch. How could we be there with you to register people to vote? Because I don't
Yeah.
register nobody. Well, I keep saying Just Vote, period, doesn't register anyone to vote. It's on our website if you choose to register to vote or vote by mail, but we don't do it. But we'll be happy to partner and get space for somebody to sit right next to us that actually could do it. So after we talk to you and give you your towel and tell you, yeah, man, we the cool kids, but if you're ready right now, just go right here. My man right here will register you.
Mhm.
So to your point, Janae, just being in places that people are at, I think is exactly what we're trying to do. You know what I'm saying? With Just
Yeah.
Vote, period.
And definitely, and I agree. And I think that as we continue to build the platform and keep doing this work, I think that those collaborations will come easy and people
Yeah.
will be, wanting to work with us. I definitely see it. Even to have like somebody like Joe Scott on and Willis Howard on, who's like, I want to come on your podcast and talk. I haven't even been able to have them on my platform, but I think the magic that we're creating with that part podcast is like, yeah, like I like I think people like, especially in their positions, they're like, oh, they're talking about this and making it cool and they're trying to reach an audience that may not be totally engaged and they're making it like plain for them. I think people are being drawn to that. And I think that'll help us in the long run with what we're trying to do. So I'm really excited about it. And just kind of like the education on it. Like I
Yeah.
feel like now anybody watching this episode can't say like their vote doesn't count. They don't know what's going to happen with the
Right.
process. Like, and here's the thing too, for people that look like me and you have two black men, one that's running for office, one's going up for reelection. People that look like you that are from our community that are like breaking it down, like you can trust these people. They're in there, they're going to make sure that your voice is heard. And all the oversight that they have to go through, they ain't trying to mess up their good job because you already
Right.
know that they you already know being a black man, you do anything wrong, they're gonna try to come for you in a position like that. So to me, that makes me feel like they're doing extra
Extra. And they
extra work
said
to
it.
make
He said
sure.
it. He broke it
Yeah.
down in you know in the podcast. And kudos to you too, Janae. That was so responsible of you to even make that further connection with Joe Scott, you know, the current supervisor of election for Broward, based on wanting to work with him with high-low news. You know what I mean? Like understanding that wow, you gained so much information. Your first instinct was to tell, you know, kind of do it publicly and tell them on the spot, which is going to now force you to actually follow up with that, right? So I saw what you did there, and it's dope because I do it too. I do those things to hold myself accountable, like so I make
Mhm.
sure it gets done because now I done put it out in the universe and people could go on YouTube and go to that part podcast and be like, well, you said, you know.
Mhm.
So
You
I
told
love
me.
that. Yeah, I love that you did that and
Thank
wanted to, you know, do that for high-low news. And like I always told you, like, and like Willis said, he gave us some great commercials, by the way. Maybe we
No,
should
I'm
use
like, we
that.
gotta really chop that up.
Right. Show producer Tammy, get ready, girl. But I I like the fact that even you know Willis talked about the same thing I said to you, and I always say to you is like, you know, like I like my news a certain way. I like it via comedy, and the only other news I have outside of getting it comedy, whether it's Bill Maher, Daily Show, whatever, is High Low, and High Low is the only local news that I get because I don't read the Herald and these other, you know, the Sun Sentinel. I just don't, you know. So High Low, and then the fact that High Low kind of focuses on things that literally specifically pertain to me. You know what I'm saying? And it's like there's never anything that I've seen on High Low that I can't connect with, even if it specifically doesn't apply to me in some way, I could still connect to it. So it's not a waste of my time ever. You know,
Wow, thank you. That's a really, really big compliment coming from the radio veteran and media icon, especially in South
ma'am, I
Florida.
would not be able to do this podcast with you if I did not invest in High Low. High
Well,
Low
you
has
better.
taught me a lot. High Low has taught me a lot. Trust.
No, no, I appreciate that. Wait, side note, I kind of wanted to know who Willis was talking about. Who was the Democrat taking Republican money, and now I gotta go. Like, I'm all invested in that race now. Like,
Yeah. We
yeah, I
got
want to know who got the
that's
Trump
a High
endorsement.
Low job right there. Talking about
Yes,
High
and I'm
Low.
like, is Willis the only black candidate running for day of elections?
I believe so. I believe so.
Wow.
I believe so. I know the Republican lady that he was talking about. Actually, she, I think she's related to that injury attorney guy, the ball-headed guy, Alex Hanna.
Oh,
Alex Hanna, call Alex Hanna. Yeah,
and that's who got the
she,
endorsement from Trump?
I believe so. There's quite a few of them, but you know, I think there's like about up to 6 now that are, or 5 or 6 that are running for that seat. So he has a good fight, but he seems very, you know, confident. He's doing those debates and you know he's taking it head on, man, and he's putting in the work. I see his signs.
Well, you know this game, especially when he was talking about the races that he's done. So,
Mm.
I was like, oh, you in your element right here.
I wonder how some other people that he used to work with are probably looking at him like, yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
Now you see
Mhm.
what it
Yeah.
is.
Oh, was it so simple, huh? Willis?
You telling your feet hurt too?
Yeah.
Remember you told me the canvas?
Oh, just do that. Just do that. Oh, just spend this. Just spend that. But I think that's cool too. You know, like coach players. That's why coach players are. You know, and I mean he's doing it in the opposite way. But you know, that's why coach players are so popular in the sports right now because the person who actually played the game seems to be a better coach because he could talk to different nuances that people who just never played the game professionally will just never have. You know what I'm saying? No matter how much knowledge they have, you know? So that's why you're seeing so many ex-players becoming coaches in the NBA and in the NFL and other sports, you know? So, you know.
Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting
This
race
was
to
cool.
watch.
Another long podcast. We trying to outdo each
Look,
other every.
look, but like they said, this is what you could use as a reference. This is what you could look if you're trying to figure something out. You're trying to understand that whole process. Like we gave y'all a lot of information. And I don't know about y'all, but I like my podcast long. If I get anything under an hour, I don't even want to watch it sometimes because I'm
Right,
like,
right,
I
right.
need that. Because podcast for me, it's either I'm walking, that's something long, my flights, I'm, listening to them. So, and then also too, I keep forgetting, we're on the iHeartRadio app. So for
Yes.
people who travel, I don't know if you guys are podcast listeners like me when I'm in the airport or if I have a long drive, it's better to listen to it on the audio platform. So we are on audio platforms. We're on iHeartRadio app. So make sure you follow us there so you can listen to it in your car, in your headphones, you can download it. So that if you're not in a place where you could watch us on YouTube, you could definitely listen to us on the
You know what
iHeartRadio app.
we're gonna start doing, and I'm saying this live so that we can commit to
Hold you
it.
accountable.
When we do our clips for the story, you can actually do a link where you can click on it. So after they watch the teasers that we sent out, the teasers that we sent out after we do the show, we could put those on our story, and we could actually do the live link from iHeart because we do that with the radio station. So now, if they like the clip, they could just click the link right there, and it takes them to the audio. And
We could do
that could
that.
be a way
We got to do that for both of them. We could say
yeah, we
watch it
can.
on YouTube and go listen to it
Yeah,
on iHeartRadio app.
yeah, we
Look
can
at
actually add both.
Tammy, get us
Yep.
get us right, girl. She like,
Oh
forget y'all.
man,
It's my birthday. Happy birthday to our
happy
producer,
birthday!
Camilla Mullings, CEO
Yes, it's her
TEM
birthday
Business
today,
Solutions.
and
Yes.
she produces the That Part podcast. She also works with me with Just Vote Period as well. She's our olive oil. She
She
pulls
works
her in
with
this
me with Hello
direction. I
News.
pull her in that direction. She in the middle, like every week. Janae got to be like, she mine though. Y'all don't get too close.
That's cousin. I don't even care. If I ever see a picture of y'all two together, I'm gonna be so mad. Ask my best
Oh
friend.
gosh.
That's my best friend Julius and my cousin Alexis. They both live in Orlando. They cannot see each other without me. I have a rule about that. My friends cannot
But
be
she,
friends
but
without me.
for the record, she is going to be working, and she's going to have to come and do some live stuff for Just Vote. So please give us a pass, please.
For work, that's okay. But
Okay.
if y'all let Cooper
I won't
Hawk,
have her in
or
Club Live. I won't.
if you take her to Cooper's Hawk, if you take her to some other restaurant, or y'all hanging out, or she come to the radio station, I'm gonna be so mad.
All right, all right, all right. You got that. Only business. Well, happy birthday to Tammy. We wish you many more. Enjoy your day today. You are a special one. And
Yes,
I think we
happy
should just
birthday,
end off on that,
Tammy.
right?
Yeah, before we let them know how they can follow us, though, I'm gonna put that on the
Oh,
screen.
my bad. My bad. Look at that. I was all into Tammy. Please follow us at That Part Podcast 305. Don't forget the 305. Somebody says that and they rap or something. Oh, Lil Wayne. Weezy
Oh,
F Baby. Don't forget the baby. Please say the
yeah.
baby. So That Part Podcast 305, because there's other That Parts and That Part Podcast. So you have to put the 305. So please make sure that you follow us on YouTube. We love when you hit that follow button. We love when you what's the other thing they call it? When you subscribe,
Yeah,
right?
subscribe and like and share and let
Yes,
people know that you're
means a lot.
enjoying the show.
And follow us on Instagram so that you can get those cool clips and encouragements and find out who our guest is going to be and get the little highlights that we like to send off there. And please follow us personally, the amazing Janae Tate, of course. Please follow Hilo News, her amazing hyperlocal news, and of course her personally at Janae Tate. Please follow me at Papa_Keith on Instagram. And please follow Just Vote Period on Instagram, the lifestyle voting initiative that we have. All right. And I have to end it off by saying happy birthday to Tammy.
Yes. Okay. Good night.
Peace.
Happy birthday.